All right. Meeting will come to order. I believe it's 10 o'clock. I'd like to remind you that this meeting is being recorded and that it will be available to be viewed later on at another date. So just want to let you know that. It's good to see everybody. Anyway, please rise. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to again thank you all for being here. My name is George Koppel. I'm the Union Township trustee in Porter County. There are about 60-some Union Townships in the state of Indiana. And I'd like to have everybody introduce themselves, starting with Iman, and then going.
Okay, I'm Iman Ibrahim. I'm a planning manager here at NERPC, and I will be responsible for the place. Of course, we're linking economy and place, but like I'm focusing more on the place and how we link that to economy.
Okay.
My name is Jennery Kane. I'm the Economic Development District Coordinator for NERPC, and I'll be working on the economy part of it. And with you all in serving in your capacity as the SED Strategy Committee, and SED stands for the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy.
Hi, I'm Annie Cruz Porter. I am a Community and Regional Development Specialist at Purdue University in West Lafayette at the Purdue Center for Regional Development. I have been hired to work as a consultant on the SEDS. That is my bread and butter. So, and I'm actually from this region originally, so it's really great to be back here and working with you all. So I'll tell you a little bit more about me and the project.
I'm Flor Baum. I'm NERPC staff.
My name is Lois Whitaker. I'm the president of the Black Chamber of Commerce in Northwest Indiana.
Randy Volunteer, business manager for Northwest Indiana Building Trades. We cover Lake Porter, Newton, Jasper. So I'm basically in charge of all the trades that build vertical construction, highways, bridges, all that. I'm also the vice chairman of the Regional Development Authority, the RDA.
Juan J. Moreno, Director of Economic Development in the City of Hammond, also a chairman of the Lakeshore Chamber of Commerce Small Business Committee.
Andy Vasquez, Porter County Council. I'm the council representative here for NERPC, and I do a lot of trust, do a lot of things.
Joe Wazalek, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Northwest Indiana Realtor Association. Our association covers 7 counties in Northwest Indiana, roughly about 4,000 realtors doing business in that area.
I'm Jen Trowbridge. I'm the president and CEO of Co-Action. It's a large social service organization, but we're also a community housing development organization. So we build and rehab for some low income, moderate income, or people experiencing homelessness housing, and we cover 7 counties in Northwest Indiana.
I'm going to stand. I tell my students to stand before they speak. No disparages against you guys, okay? I'm Tony Sindone, Clinical Associate Professor of Economic Development for IUN. I'm also the Director of the Economic Development Academy and Education Program for anyone interested in economic development. Come see me. We're going to start Module 2 in January.
Jim Burge, Councilman, Town of Porter, also NERPC Commissioner for the Town of Porter.
Meredith Stillwell, NERPC staff.
I'll stand as well. Good morning, Tom Vanderwood. I'm the Director of Transportation for NERPC.
Grace Billiger, NERPC staff.
Okay, thank you and welcome. We appreciate the turnout here. And the short notice it makes an additional reason for thanking you for being here. And I apologize to Andy Vasquez for telling him the meeting was 9 o'clock, but he had 2 hours of sleep and I won't be able to get here at 9. Anyway, a reminder, this is being recorded for the sake of posterity and for information and edification. So keep that in mind. All right, to start things off, we're going to start with Tom Vanderwood, who's going to give us a basic overview of the economy and place committee structure and purpose.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for attending this morning. This is the first meeting of a new committee, so what I'd like to do is just kind of give you an overview of NERPC as an agency, as well as an overview of what this committee is and what we expect it to do going forward. So let's start here. So some of you may already know this. I understand that some of you have participated with NRPC in the past, but for those who maybe have heard the name but don't really know exactly what we do here, and for those who might need a little refresher, Northwest Indiana Regional Planning Commission, NRPC, we were created in 1965 by state legislation. We serve two main functions, although we'll talk about a third this morning as well. The first is that we are a metropolitan planning organization, and we're also a council of governments. And I'll talk about those two. But our board composition is set by that statute that created us, and it stipulates that we have on our board 53 members. That's a representative from 41 cities and towns in Lake Porter and LaPorte counties, representatives from each one of those county councils, county commissions, as well as their surveyors, two of our most densely populated townships in Porter County, and then a governor's appointee. And we represent, as a whole, with those three counties, nearly 800,000 people. It's more like 785,000. Our legislation gave us three focus areas. Those are economic development, and the environment, and transportation planning, not in any particular order. And then kind of broadly speaking, what we do in order to influence those three areas is we provide a forum for people to come together to work on regional initiatives, to engage in dialogue, to establish a vision, and then to implement projects and both planning projects and infrastructure projects that accomplish that vision. I will be brief and just kind of talk about what we do in each one of those three areas. With respect to economic development, this committee is actually working directly in that domain. The main activity that we do here is work as an economic development district, or an EDD. And we're going to throw out a lot of acronyms at these committee meetings. If there's something that you don't understand, just stop me and I'll explain it. We tend to just kind of, sort of slide into jargon from time to time. So if there's an acronym you don't understand, just raise your hand. But as I said, in 2019, we were designated by the US EDA as an EDD. So what that means for us is that we develop and implement a comprehensive economic development strategy, or a CEDS, which, as it says here, is a 5-year strategy-driven plan for regional economic development. We also have worked on other projects such as the 2022 Economic Recovery and Resilience Plan. In terms of the environment, directly we work in a handful of areas. We staff an environmental committee which brings together stakeholders from various economic interests, as well as governmental agencies, private industry, to kind of provide a forum to establish policy and determine projects. We've participated in the community program since 2017, so we've given away many trees to local communities. We have a brownfields program, and then through the congestion mitigation and air quality program with the Federal Highway Administration, we also conduct air quality public education. So we partner with Drive Clean Indiana. In terms of transportation, and this is probably our largest source of revenue for the agency, and probably the greatest level of effort that we put into any program. As I said, we're designated as a metropolitan planning organization. And what that is, it's a federally mandated, so it's required by the federal government that any place where you have greater than 50,000 people in an urban area, they have to be represented by a metropolitan planning organization. And that group brings together the decision makers in that area and decides how federal transportation funding is spent within the region. So we have three urban areas in our region that exceed 50,000 in population. Those are the Indiana portion of the Chicago urban area, the Michigan City LaPorte urban area, and the Valparaiso Shorewood Forest urban area. So for each one of those urban areas, which is a census designated geography, we serve as the MPO. So we receive authority to identify transportation projects within the region and then allocate federal transportation funding to those projects. And so even though we're talking about transportation, I think the key part of this is we are required to make our decisions for those projects within what they call the 3C process. It has to be continuing, cooperative, and comprehensive. And that means we can't just look at a particular metric. We have to look at an overall sort of comprehensive set of metrics to determine the best use of our funding. And we have to do so in consultation with stakeholders and all of the elected officials within our region. And we have to develop that approach based on a regionally shared vision. And so what that means is, for this committee in particular, is that sort of the land use and the economy in place aspect, all of the decisions that you make here get funneled into our overall transportation planning process. So we look at the analysis that's done for land use, and we look at the economic benefits of projects, and we put that into our long-range transportation plan. We put that into our unified planning work program, and then we also use those criteria to select projects for our transportation improvement program. And those are the three primary documents that we produce as an MPO. So as a few examples of some of the work that we've done related to both transportation and land use, and I won't go over these because Eman's presentation talks about them in more detail, but over the years we've produced a number of studies and plans that have kind of fed into how we've programmed transportation funding. So these are just a handful. I mean, we've done region-wide projects. We've also done special projects that deal with particular areas of the community, such as creating livable communities, which really focuses on downtown and walkable areas, or the Marquette Action Plan, which focuses on the lakeshore. So why is this committee convening now? Earlier this year, we had a bit of a restructuring, and so out of that restructuring came this new committee, which is called Economy in Place. And what it does is it takes a pre-existing committee, which was the Land Use Committee, and it marries it with a committee that we never actually had, but we are required to have, which is our Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, CEDS Committee. So this group will have influence on those two aspects of our work. Now, I will read these slides verbatim for the next 10 minutes. I'm kidding. So I'll just briefly go over these aspects of these committees here, this committee here, but because Dennery and Eman are going to go into a little more detail, but as I said, the two main roles of the committee, which is your two main roles here, are to serve as the CEDS committee. And what that means is you will be overseeing the development of our new CEDS, Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. You will provide a recommendation to our full commission, that 53-member board, to adopt that document, and any amendments that come before you will provide a recommendation to the commission. Ultimately, that the commission will serves as our economic development district. So they're making the final decisions, but they'll be making that based on your recommendations. And then we will receive funding applications for EDA funding. And those funding decisions will be reviewed, or those applications will be reviewed by the committee or by a designee, which would be Dennery, to ensure consistency with that strategy. So that really comprises the bulk of the economic development portion of it. And then for the land use and community planning aspect, the place portion of it, you're really serving as kind of like a topical committee for the commission. And there's a number of things that you'll do, but primarily you'll be providing feedback and direction on our land use planning activities. You will be reviewing applications for transportation funding in certain funding categories. So there are certain categories of funding that are available through our Transportation Improvement Program that you'll be able to weigh in and help prioritize those applications. You will be making recommendations to our Transportation Committee. And then there's a project that we have kind of in the works but hasn't come to fruition yet, which would provide planning assistance to local governments. So local governments could apply for funding to conduct plans of their own, and you would be involved in the development of that program and then selecting those projects. A little bit of housekeeping. I think some of you received this in a fact sheet, but the membership of the committee is based on two things. It's based on what are the requirements of a SEDS per federal statute, and then what are the requirements that we have internally for a committee that reflects the makeup of the commission as a whole. So there are 12 commissioners appointed to this committee. For geographic distribution, there's 4 per county. Commissioners may appoint a proxy to serve on the committee. And then the remainder of the folks listed on that sheet here are all representatives from various, I guess you'd call them like regional stakeholders. They represent various aspects, various disciplines within the region, and those are the groups that are designated or required per the SEDS legislation. For a quorum of the meeting, we are only requiring 3 voting committee members. So you might see that that's pretty low. But the reason for that is we have to conduct business. So if you want, so whether or not everybody is here, we have to conduct business because we have timelines that we have to adhere to. So as long as there are 3 members here, we will conduct business. If you want to participate, if you want to have your voice and your opinion reflected in the decision-making process, you have to be here. We won't cancel the meeting if you're not here. And then a simple majority of the quorum is required to act. Finally, as I think it's been communicated to you, we plan on meeting just quarterly on the 2nd Wednesday of the month. We'll establish that schedule for next year going forward. This is the first meeting, obviously. Though we will have, during certain periods of time, we will ask for additional meetings. And that could either be a subset of the committee, so like a working group, or it could be a committee of, like a committee of the whole, where we say we want everybody to be there. So that'll happen, for example, as we're trying to meet deadlines for the development of the SEDS. And then there may be other instances, for example, if we are working on a project selection process that we need to meet certain deadlines to get a commission approval. So that's sort of the expectations that we would have for the committee going forward. That is the extent of my introduction. I'll take any questions if there are any.
Get that slideshow out to us and email it, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll send that out. In fact, this is all compiled into a single slideshow, so we'll send the whole thing out to the committee.
Okay, is that it, Tom?
Yep.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Dennery Kane is next on our agenda, but before we do that, I'd like to introduce Judith Cardenas, who would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Judith Cardenas. I am a part-time business advisor with the Northwest Indiana Small Business Development Center. We're based out of Crown Point. I handle Lake County, so anything from Whiting all the way down to St. John and Crown Point area, everything in between.
Okay. Is that primarily Lake County?
For myself?
Yeah, well, that you cover,
yes.
You overlap in the border and all?
No, my boss, Lori, she handles most of
Oh, okay, all right, that's
Yes,
good to
it's
know.
to be on my team.
And LaPorte County, is that also affiliated with your organization?
It is, yeah.
Okay, great.
So our office handles 10 different regions. I pulled up my good business card and I'll give it to you guys. It's all 10 listed on here.
Okay, thank you so much.
Alrighty.
Yeah, Lori actually lives in LaPorte.
She
so.
does. Yeah, so.
All right, great. Henry.
Well, good morning. First, I want to thank you for agreeing to serve on this new Economy and Place Committee. We really are trying to represent various interests that perhaps have not been at the table before. So we do appreciate your participation. And as we go through this, if you do have questions, or perhaps you're not comfortable asking those in a public forum, please feel free to contact me. I have my business cards I'll bring out, and I'll be happy to have more in-depth conversations with anyone one-on-one. First of all, as Tom mentioned, you're serving also as the SED Strategy Committee, and that is basically the group that's the principal facilitator of the SEDS process, and as such is responsible for developing and implementing the SEDS. Again, with staff support, obviously, and we ask as you go into this process that you contribute your knowledge in your particular area of expertise. I know we have several people here that have in-depth knowledge of whatever that special area is. Perhaps it's real estate, perhaps it's economy, small business, what have you. We also ask that you can collaborate with other members on interdisciplinary type topics. At some point, you'll be asked to vet the direction of the strategies and the implementation recommendations. And so that will be kind of the decision-making part of this role, is to help make the determination of what will be in the SEDS. The SEDS is basically considered a roadmap for regional economic development. It's like the region's strategic plan. There is another strategic plan in our region, and that is the IGNITE plan, but that covers a 7-county area. This one is covering a 3-county area, and it has to have some very specific items in it in order to get the EDA's approval. And Annie will get into the details of that in her presentation. But it is a locally based, regionally driven economic development plan that identifies the region's strengths and weaknesses and aims to bring together a diverse set of partners to create good jobs, diversify the economy, and spur economic growth. It also serves as a conduit for resources to our region. And this is one of the main reasons why the SEDS and the EDD were established to begin with, is it puts the 3 counties in a better position to seek and receive EDA funding for certain projects. To date, since my tenure here, we have been successful in getting 2 EDA grants. One was about $385,000 a couple years ago for the University of St. Francis in order to purchase healthcare-related training equipment in order to expand their healthcare education program. And then most recently, and you may have read about this in the paper, the city of LaPorte was successful in getting a $2.5 million EDA grant to make stormwater improvements in order to expand one of their existing industrial park areas. So again, these things are reviewed, these applications are reviewed, NERC through either Ty or myself as the designee, make sure that they are compliant with the SEDS. The bottom line is the EDA doesn't want to fund projects that don't have SEDS support. They want to make sure that the projects are supported on a regional basis, and while they may not have to be specifically listed as a project in the SEDS, they still need to make sure that they check one of the broader goals or objectives. In addition, what I wanted to point out is back in the day when the SEDS was first developed, people were churning out documents that were like 200 pages. So this is our current SEDS, and at the time, this was the direction that EDA wanted, and this is what they were provided. Things have changed. Now they're looking for a much more streamlined document, perhaps no more than 50 pages. When we did the Economic Recovery and Resiliency Plan back in 2022, this was about a 30-page document. And additionally, what we'd like to do is take the still valid recommendations from this Recovery and Resiliency Plan that is only a few years old and integrate the economic resiliency components into our new SEDS. So by the time we're done, we're going to take a document that's this fat and this document, we're going to meld them, and then we're going to have a separate document that's essentially appendices that might be a reference point. But we want this to be a very user-friendly and also a very readable document. So we are going to be looking at streamlining things. We're going to be looking at making sure that the things that we recommend are absolutely realistic within the 5-year period. And what we're not going to do is we're no longer going to have a list of very specific projects. In the old SED, if you go online and you read it, you'll find some very specific projects. This is no longer the direction that EDA wants you to take. As I learned when I was meeting with communities to find out what the status of these projects were, they change. You know, some may represent a certain administration's wish list, but it hasn't carried forward. There may be other funding sources that were quicker to solve the problem versus the EDA, so those projects are no longer valid. So they really have moved away from a project-based list in a SEDS to, again, broader strategies and objectives. Annie is going to talk a little bit about her role in this and where we go forward, but I just want to end with this, and that's that we're going to be, through this process, answering 5 questions. What have we done? Where are we now? Where do we want to go? And how are we going to get there? And are we meeting our overall goals and objectives? So with that, I'll turn this over to Annie. Thank you.
Okay, Annie Cruz Porter, you're up next with going further with the update on SEDS. And in the meantime, I'd like to introduce Gary Johnson. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, I'm involved in various not-for-profit activities in Northwest Indiana. I'm the board chair of the Calumet Heritage Partnership and of the Society of Innovators at Purdue Northwest. I sit on the Lake Michigan Coastal Program, Coastal Advisory Board, and also on the Regional Care Group board. So I'm kind of a full-time volunteer at this point. I'm a native of Gary and graduate of Horace Mann High School, and then went away to Purdue in West Lafayette, and eventually had a career mostly around Chicago, and then in 1979 moved to Cleveland and lived there for 33 years and came back to the region in 2012 and got involved with a business partner in a company called MortarNet Solutions, and my partner and I sold it 2.5 years ago. I got more involved in community stuff then.
So we're glad you have you on board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to it. And I've done a lot of work with this young lady. Thank you very much.
Okay, Annie Cruz Porter, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Annie Cruz Porter, as I introduced earlier, and it really is a pleasure to be here. This is really the first SEDS meeting and kind of kickoff of the project, and it's my role to really kind of facilitate the committee through the different steps that we need to go through. And I'll go through that a little bit, but first I want to talk to you about the Purdue Center for Regional Development and who is going to be working on this project with you. I'm the project manager, I'm the point person. I am a PhD in urban planning, and my background is in geography and urban planning. And like I said earlier, I'm from this region. I grew up in Hammond and also in Crown Point, and graduated from Crown Point High School a very long time ago. And so the last 8 years I have been at PCRD at Purdue University, and our director, Indranil Kumar, he is our data analysis guru. I'm going to be working closely with him to pull up all the data that we need on industry clusters, skills, and occupations that we'll be going through in one of our workshops that I'll be conducting. And then I'm going to be working with Chris Parker and Haiwan Shin. And Chris Parker is a Purdue Extension regional educator based out of Porter County. And she's going to be working very closely with me to help kind of design and lead the community workshops with stakeholders, the engagement that we're going to be conducting. And Haiwan is relatively new to PCRD. She comes to us from the University of Arizona, and she's going to be kind of shadowing and watching what it is we do. And then Ryan Maluchnik, he's also based up here in the region. He's going to be our graphic designer. And so any of the invitations to our stakeholder meetings, the actual final product, the design of the actual sets, he's going to be working closely with me on that. Okay, and I just want to give you a little bit of introduction to PCRD. So we are an EDA University Center. It's a designation that we've had since 2005. As part of that, we work very closely with Indiana regions, and there are 16 of those throughout the state of Indiana, and NERPC being one of them. As was stated earlier, NERPC is an economic development district, and that is a designation by the EDA, and part of the SEDS is a requirement from the EDA that needs to be updated every 5 years. And so I will be leading you all through that process, and we can talk a little bit about what makes up the EDD. But also, PCRD has been involved on the national level on a couple of major initiatives. So we are working right now to update the United States cluster maps for the entire country. Okay, and we're about a year into this project. And it has, before we started working on this project, it was formerly housed at Harvard University. So it's really quite an honor to be asked to do this and to get this grant. So you're actually the first region, you might be where we kind of combine some of what we've learned, because the project actually finishes about 6 months after we finish your sets. We've also worked closely with Dennery and also Time Warner on the Economic Resiliency Project that we started just before COVID hit. And it was about the Great Recession and the economic shocks that happened as a result of the Great Recession. We conducted focus groups up here, I want to say in 2020, in winter 2020, and about the shocks that happened during the Great Recession. And it actually helped us kind of gear up for the shocks that happened and some of the data that came out of the COVID economic shock. And we can talk about that as well when we go through the project. Also, I've been involved in the READY project. So I've been appointed as part of the evaluation team for the by PCRD. So I'll be working with evaluation of READY projects throughout the state of Indiana. So that's something that I'm currently working on as well. So let's dive into what is an EDD. It's an economic development district that is designated by the EDA. They all have an approved SEDS. So first, a SEDS is developed, and then it goes to the board, NERPC board, where it needs to be ratified, and then it is submitted to the EDA. And if the EDA accepts it, then NERPC will continue to be an EDD. I'm not really very concerned about that process. We will get there in the end. I have done that in the past. So EDA's regional distress criteria must also be met in order to have an approved SED, sorry. So you need to have a certain income, unemployment, or a special need. One of the counties must meet this criteria, and we can talk about where NERC sits in relation to this. And I just wanted to touch a little bit on eligibility for EDA funding. As it was mentioned earlier, it really positions the EDD to apply for important funding from the EDA and other national governmental agencies. So in Indiana, for the fiscal year 2023, Indiana received more than $10 million in investments, and regions throughout Indiana were able to leverage $14 million from those investments. So again, this is from the 16 regions, and that makes a total of $24 million of investment in Indiana as a result of that funding. So EDD specifics, as I mentioned, you have to be a distressed, you have to have one county that's distressed, so low per capita income. So the area has to have a per capita income of 80% or less of the national average, or unemployment rate above the national average. So the area has to have an unemployment rate that is for the most recent 24-month period, so that's averaged, for which data is available at least 1% greater than the national average employment rate. Or an area has to have a special need, an area that has experienced or is about to experience a special need arising from an actual or threatened severe unemployment or economic adjustment. So those are the specifics of the EDA. So this is Indiana. This is our most recent map. So this is 2022. So Lake County is defined as distressed by the EDA by employment. LaPorte County has both unemployment and income levels that are below the per capita, at least 80% below the per capita income, but Porter County is not distressed, but that easily fits into the EDA requirements. Okay, so I just thought I'd pull up some data because we'll be talking a lot about data and data on this region as we go through this process. And this is just to kind of give you an idea of where the NERC region sits relative to the rest of the country. NERC 24-month unemployment is 4.43% as opposed to the US average of 3.63%. The BLS unemployment rate, so that's where that unemployment rate comes from. And then there's the per capita personal income. That's the BEA PCPI column. So for the US, that's 65,000, roughly 65,000. And in NERC region, that's $55,000 a year. So I just wanted to give you a quick flavor of this. These slides will be available to you if you want them, and you can have this data. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the components of a good SEDS. We will have strong public engagement. That is one of the factors that I'm really taking into consideration, and a lot of that information will be in the appendix document. So the types of organizations that participated, the kind of people that participated. We anonymize all of it, but you just want to demonstrate that you have touched upon key community members and that it's been comprehensive. We will outline industry cluster support. So we'll talk about industry cluster data quite a lot because that's important to regional competitiveness in the United States. And it's not just about supporting, the big companies and in the usual industries. We can really kind of dive into the data, and we can even take a second dive into the data if that's needed. So I can come back to you with more information. We will focus on it. All good SEDS have to have an aspect of resiliency. And as Dennery mentioned, you have the economic resiliency plan. And we'll go over that and we'll kind of pick different things to discuss out of that as well. Workforce development. All good SEDS have an aspect of workforce development. And we really want to make this a workable plan. So Dennery can go back and the NERC staff can go back and say, okay, I know how I can make an impact with this plan. I know what my expectations are. I know how to connect the dots. And that's going to be my job as a policy writer and also a communicator. So she can do that and do that well. And then we put in an evaluation framework, and that's going to be indicators. So I'm not talking about, okay, so go back and reduce unemployment by 1% in the next 3 years. Like, that's an unattainable goal. But we can break it down where somebody works with small business development or Chamber of Commerce, or, you know, how can regional staff move the needle in a very real way, okay? And then we will do a SWOT analysis, and that's part of the public engagement process that we'll be going through. Okay, we have a 6-month timeline. It is going to be short and it's going to be intense, I think. So this kind of gives you an understanding of where we are. So we actually already have the first, I guess, cluster of data for industry clusters and resiliency. We will be doing over the next few weeks, and Dennery and I have already spoken about this, some of the community engagement preparation, where we're going to hold workshops, what days they're likely to be. We're going to be putting together, you know, who will be invited, a potential stakeholder list. And then we're going to actually conduct the county stakeholder engagements. I'm going to be holding 3 in person and up to 3 virtually. People don't have to necessarily stay within their county. They can go to any of them that fits into their schedule, but we want to make sure that we have one in each county just to make it convenient for the residents and the people that are there. We will also have strategy meetings and workshops. So, like I said, I'll be going over industry cluster and workforce data in one of them, and then we'll also be going through the SWOT analysis that I've gathered from the community engagement side. And then after that, we will have a policy discussion and some of the policies that, as a group, and this will be facilitated, you think are the best policies to take. And I like to concentrate on just 3 general policy areas, and they're very broad. And 3 is workable. So that's how I like to do it. And then we will have we will kind of drill down into those industrial clusters after the first workshop, and occupations will kind of drill down into that a bit more, because I'm sure you'll have questions and you'll want to kind of look at specific ones with more depth. And then we will issue progress reports to NERC throughout the project. And then we will put the draft together, and that will be posted for public comment. And that's a 30-day requirement by the EDA. And we will also compile all the comments. We kind of use it in a survey format, so people have comments, they can click on a link, add their comments, and then that will eventually go into the appendix. And then we will have a final SEDS presentation and meeting that will be open by NERC. And then after that process, then the SEDS is actually finalized. And that's a 6-month process, and it ends March 31st. Okay, so with our SWOT analysis, these are the areas we're going to be focusing on. And yes, they do intersect quite well with other areas that the agency works with, including environment and transportation. So there's, resiliency, infrastructure, industry clusters, and workforce issues. So the workforce really comprises occupations and skills. And we are discovering that those are actually a key component to regional competitiveness as well. Okay, so this is just a rough outline of how We are proposing the regional engagement to go. Like I said, we will have 3 in-person stakeholder workshops. We'll hold up to 3 virtual workshops as well, depending on the demand. I will have, just in my back pocket, a survey component of industries after the workshop, just in case I don't think we've touched enough or gotten a broader public engagement. So I always have that just in case. So that way I know that the engagement section is robust enough for the EDA. Then the committee will be responsible for 2 group workshops focused on the regional data and the SWOT analysis, and then they'll have 1 policy formation session. So that's me and my contact information. I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes.
Curious about something that you had up there. With your graph and all the different counties, the 3 counties, you said that Porter County is doing well.
Yes. Compared to the national average.
Compared to the national
yes.
average. However, looking at this within the 3 counties, while we don't have a high unemployment rate, we are the lowest with the PCPI. Does that tell me as a councilman or from Porter County that we don't have the jobs that are paying higher end for our people? And if so, would that make us to a degree economically depressed?
That is exactly why we have these sessions, because the data doesn't reveal everything, right? We have a conversation, you contextualize the data for me, and vice versa. And that is an important point, purchasing power. And within Porter County, I'm sure that's an issue. And the data always is 2 years out of date, right? So, and that's the best we've got. Yeah. So being able to contextualize it and hear what is actually happening on the ground is always, will be put into the census.
Because of the lag time.
Yeah, there is a lag. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the latest good data we have is in 2022.
Yes.
I do this work all the time.
Yeah.
Can we go back to your slide on the timeline, please?
Absolutely. Here we go.
Okay, now maybe it's just my eyes, I'm not sure. I'm looking at the milestones, right?
Yes.
So data compilation, that was done last month according to this timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yes, we
Okay,
have that,
so
right?
then I'm gonna.
I haven't gone through it with Denver
I know,
yet.
I have follow-ups.
Yeah.
I have follow-ups. Okay, Denver can tell you I have follow-ups all the time.
Yeah.
Cluster analysis is how far along is Indra on that?
On our new project?
The new cluster map that might be relevant for our area. I've worked with Indra before. So
Yeah. So we will take what we have. I mean, we have the old data, right? The old way that we've done it in the past, but we're going to kind of take a step.
Okay, that's the Porter model from Harvard, right?
Yes.
And so, that's great. So it is step by step. I see you have another step, data compilation number 2, cluster analysis, but that is after we write up our second draft of the document. How are we going to do that?
No, actually, that's before the draft.
Is it?
Yes.
Like I said, my eyes.
No, it's okay.
No. Well, the first one is, but not the second one.
The second one is right before. Oh, I see.
That's December 24. Right?
Yeah.
Am I looking at it wrong?
But the draft is also going to be done in January and February.
Oh, so it continues.
Yeah.
It continues on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the drill down is, for example, say you wanted to look at sheet metal fabricators. I'm just pulling this out of my head. I have no idea about that.
We have a lot of those here.
Yeah. Okay. So say you want to drill down into that and kind of know what those industries are, who are the players, how many, how is that performing?
Right.
As what the location quotient is,
right.
all of that, so we can kind of drill down into very specific ones.
Okay, yeah, I'm not meaning to be a pest,
Yeah,
but
no.
since I do this, I jump knee deep into this work here.
Yeah.
As far as the clusters are concerned, we're talking about clusters with respect to value added, industries themselves, the crosswalks between industries, labor. I mean, Because cluster analysis
Generally.
is really overlap, right?
Yes. Generally, we look at just overall industry clusters. And if you wanted that crosswalk,
Yeah.
we can do that as well. And we also look at manufacturing superclusters specifically. So those are the two we generally use. If NERC, if you think on the committee that you want a different kind of approach, we can look at that as
No,
well.
I have no problem with the approach. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around it. To see
Yes.
Because in order for us to do an economic impact study, we have to have that data. We have to have that
Yes.
information. We have to know what the plan is and how it's structured.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Andy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Yes.
A real nuts and bolts question. Looking at the project timeline and looking at the note here that our next meeting is in January, how will those of us in the committee be involved in the various things that happen between now and January?
Let me interject this. Tom had mentioned in his comments that we also have the ability to do working groups. Working groups can't take a vote on anything, but what we would like to do is invite the committee as a whole to participate in the working group. We'll also reach out to people that aren't officially on the committee that we think might have some added expertise. We've gone ahead and identified 2 dates for the working group to meet. One is, and we'll send this information out, they'll both be from 1 to 2:30 and they'll be virtual meetings, which means you can join by Zoom probably most likely.
Yeah.
One will be November 12th and the other will be December 10th. So those will be opportunities for the working group. Again, anybody on the committee is welcome to participate in the working group, but it'll be your opportunity to provide that input.
Yes.
And then the next quarterly meeting of this body is not until January 8th. And that's when probably these policy decisions will be made. And then we've also identified, for now at least, 2 out of the 3 community engagement sessions. We'll also get that information out to you. One will be here in this room from 9 to 11 a.m. on December 6th. One will be in LaPorte at the Exchange Building, which is near their public library in downtown LaPorte, from 6 to 8 p.m. on November 14th. And then we're going to be working with Juan to identify a date for a meeting in downtown Hammond at a meeting room at the Hammond Development Corporation.
Correct.
So that will hopefully be also in that mid-November timeframe. We just haven't had a chance to coordinate that. So we'll get these dates out to you in an email so that we can make sure you have time to get them on your calendar.
Yeah, we've just been coordinating that this week. Yeah.
And what will the subject of the working group meetings be?
Yeah, so the first one will be our industry cluster and resiliency data. And I will also look through your existing resiliency plan to see what we can bring out of that. So that will be the first one. We'll also talk about workforce and occupation data.
And where are we going to get that data from specifically?
Interneal.
Okay.
Yes.
Interneal. Inter's got the magic.
Yeah, he does.
Because I'm trying to find the magic of all this data, especially
I can
more
also
recent data.
send you what we have
That'd
on
be
this
great.
region already.
I'll give you my
And that's on
card.
a website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it is on the
Yes.
PCRD website.
PCRD
Already?
website, yes.
You guys are good.
Yeah.
I have a question. Can you go back to your SWOT analysis?
Yes. Here we go.
So I guess I'm just trying to figure in here, where does housing fit into this?
That would be part of the infrastructure.
Okay.
Yeah. So social infrastructure and transportation infrastructure. Yeah.
We're in the middle of
We're in the middle of
We're
a
in the middle of a
housing
housing
study.
study for the 7 county. I know
Oh,
Abraham
okay,
was
awesome.
from me this morning as well, so. You know,
Housing is
that's-
a really big issue right now, and
Yeah,
I'm sure it'll pop up in this plan.
We can break it down to the top, I shouldn't say the top 3 counties, but the ones that are relevant
Yeah.
here. We can I break it down by county, so.
Any other questions?
If I could just ask, if you have people that you really want to make sure are notified for these community engagement sessions, please shoot me an email and we will make sure that they get an invitation.
All right. Thank you very much for having me, and you will see a lot more of me in the next coming weeks.
Thank you, Annie Cruz Porter.
All right, thank you.
And next, Iman Ibrahim. But before, Spencer Summers, would you like to say a brief, who are you and how do you do?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. Spencer Summers, Economic Development Director with the Northwest Indiana Forum. We're the 7 county regional economic development group housed in this building, our offices. So thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being here. Iman, take it away.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming. We're moving to a new committee, Economy and Place. I used to staff the Land Use Committee since 2009, and now as we try to consolidate some of these committees and to get like a list committee, we used to have like a 7 committee working, and now we reduce it to a 4 committee, which is great, yeah. So today I'm just going over why Economy and Place, and then an overview of the Land Use Committee, all the accomplishments that we had through this committee, and also the current work that we are working on. So first to start is with the Economy and Place. You know, they are really deeply connected. And if you look at the land use and the human activities such as agriculture, infrastructure, housing, industry, it's all impacting, utilizing land. And if we don't have the right choices of these type of land use, you know, like either have a good choices or bad choices, it's gonna impact the local economy and the state economy and also the national economy. So making the right decision about land use is gonna make a positive impact on the economy. So we have some of the challenges which I pulled here, which is also impacting the economy. Like for example, now the population is moving from cities, but the jobs is still concentrated in the main area and the area that has like the surface, the transportation, the more dense population and employment. And that's, of course, creating a gap between job hubs and the new housing growing outside of in the county area or outside of the main cities or main centers. And also, as we expand our urban area to outside of the main centers, of course, it's taking out agricultural land. And that's impacting the food production and the livelihood of the rural area, and again creating issue of environmental issue and economic issue. That's another example. We also, the already mature communities, we have a limited land. We don't have enough land to expand. So the land use regulation should be changed. You know, like the housing, for example, you know, like building in large lots should, you know, like be changed and have like more smaller lots or mixed use, so we can add more people within the main centers and in proximity to jobs. So I pulled like one important goal that was addressed in the 2050 plan that was adopted in 2019, and also the 2050 plus that was adopted last year. And in this one, the goal is to maximize growth in existing center, to enhance the civic and economic life, to protect the natural area and farmland. So this goal by itself, it has a lot included with that. So first, we would like to encourage growth to be within the existing centers and within the urbanized area. and of course to protect agricultural land. Also create policies for more affordable housing, near work and transportation hubs. And that's again, most of the transit area in main cities or mature communities, which are already developed, they don't have, and the house prices is going higher and it's not affordable. And I'm gonna talk more about the affordability of housing in the next presentation. I know that we have intense meeting and so many presentation today, but that's only in the first meeting because we need to just give you a background about what we did before or what we're doing. But I think the next meeting will be very technical and focused on the sales and what we're doing with the land use and housing. So we need to preserve the agricultural land and zoning and preservation. And for us, from the regional perspective, we don't have the authority over local government, but what we do here with our regional plan is we do like an in-depth analysis and we make recommendations and we link that to our transportation funding. So even when we have applications, people apply for our transportation funding, we're making sure that we meet the vision and goals of our 2050 plan or 2050 plus. So the people that meet more our goals or criteria, they get like a better score. And that's what can we do. And also we are the clearinghouse of data, so we help also the local communities with that. So that's the best practices of land use, of course, is going to impact economic development. So the Land Use Committee accomplishments, as I mentioned, we had the committee since 2009. We had so many projects and so many reports and studies was overseen by this committee. And I'm focusing today in the last 5 years, what we did in the last 5 years, because it's gonna take like a whole 2 hours if we want to go through what we did with the Land Use Committee. But at least now in the last accomplishment, in 2019, as I mentioned, we adopted the 2050 plan and came out of the recommendation is to look more into e-commerce. And we put together this study, e-commerce in Northwest Indiana. And because we noticed that the freight is going to grow by almost 40%, freight traffic in 2050. The increasing of the urban warehousing facilities and logistics and the last mile delivery. So when we did this study, we started in 2019, and by the end of the study, the pandemic hit, which also increased the number of the e-commerce. So we had to tweak the data by the end of the study because it was more than we analyzed in the beginning of the project. So the outcomes of the project was basically the e-commerce trends, impacts land use, transportation network, and the traffic. We looked at the potential location for future warehouses and distribution centers. We also ran the travel demand modeling for existing and future demand for e-commerce facilities. We also had recommendation for the Northwest Indiana communities on how to prepare for e-commerce in the next 10 years. So this map showing here the light blue color this is the potential locations for e-commerce. And to do that, we had a number of criteria and analysis from transportation, highway network, and residential density, industrial density. So many factors, and we run all of these factors through the transportation modeling, and we came up with this light blue area. That's the potential good locations for e-commerce. And two of the e-commerce facilities, the Amazon one in Broadway or Main Street, Broadway, opened actually within this area. And that's another facility also Gary opened within this light blue area. So, and that was like a good guidance, you know, like, and we have like a more details and more even specific area even will be much better, you know, for location based on our analysis. So we provide this map for communities as they wanted to look on where is the best location for warehousing and distribution centers. Once we're done with that, we identified funding through NERC, and we offer it to a 5 area here. As you see, the different color, the yellow, orange, and the pink, and also that's red and blue. So the small area, the boundary, that's the best area based on our traffic analysis zone that's showing this is even better location. So we still have the blue area, but even we have even better location. And the first community got the funding was the city of Gary, and they did a study between Burr Street, Grant Street and Burr Street, and that was the best location for them to locate a distribution center and warehousing. And the map on the right showing all of the transportation, distribution, and logistic area, or TDL. And they have the one in the red, that's their priority sites that they're gonna work on it and try to work and attract businesses to come to this area. So that's one of the study, and actually it was one of the very good successful study that we did here in, and the land use committee was overseeing all of this and get feedback, because we had members from all the planners within the Northwest Indiana. We had some engineers, transit people, and they were all included, and they gave us a good feedback regarding them. The second one here that was also adopted in 2022, and that's specifically a TOD funding program, and that's, we were aiming to set investments guidelines and scoring and project eligibility to enhance the transit stations area and corridors. So we selected 15 transit-oriented development, 5 bus stations, and then all the Lakeshore and the Westlake stations, and we defined the specific area that will be eligible for the funding. The funding is through the NOFA, or Notice of Funding Availability, that's what we call it. The funding is specifically, we have for planning, land use, and corridor plan. We provide funding for any land use and transportation plan within the region, and also for the specifically the TOD, or transit-oriented development. We have TOD planning, and that's offered for the 15 transit stations that we defined within the study. And then also we offer TOD implementation, and that's funding the transportation related projects within the TOD. So that's another project. The criteria that we put on the applications that has to meet these criteria to get a good score, which we are focusing on if the project is strengthen economic base and increase transit ridership, contribute to placemaking and local identity, remove barriers of equity and affordable housing, and also attract investments and create jobs within the transit station area. The third one, which was adopted last year also in 2023, and that's the Sensible Tools Handbook Plus. We had the first book that was completed in 2007, and that's basically to help all the elected officials within the communities, planners, zoning administrators, just to get like a good sensible growth practice within their communities. And also we offer questionnaires for both parts. Part 1, which is a comprehensive plan, the sensible growth checkup, zoning ordinance. So we offer questions, and people answer these questions, and then they get a score. And I'm showing here an example. This is if they really need to check if they need a comprehensive plan. That's an example. We have, of course, questionnaires for all the 9 items that we included on the Sensible Tools Handbook.
Question.
Yeah.
I was wondering, how many people have seen the comprehensive planning handbook or would like a copy of it?
The sensible tools handbook, yeah. We
How
just
many-
printed that, yeah.
How many have not seen the handbook?
2050?
The
The
23
2023 handbook, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it's on our
so
website.
we'll make sure.
Yeah, we're gonna share that.
At least on this committee is familiar with what we're talking about.
We are planning actually to have like 2 workshops. So far, we are not definite about the dates, but we thinking February and late April, early May. So we're gonna have a good training talking about that. So that was the old book included that. So in the 2023, we updated all of these questionnaires based on the trends and issues and challenges that we had in the last 10, 15 years since we adopted the first book. And in this one, we focused more on resiliency, healthy, sustainable, equitable, and smart. And I don't want to go through all of that, but what we're doing here is we have a specific things that we're looking for, and we are offering best practices for these subjects and also tools. So we offer tools in the community if they wanted to look at the specific area, and even we're gonna offer that in the training. So we offer them the tools that they could use to achieve this type of elements: sustainable, healthy, sustainable, equitable, and smart. And of course, smart, we are covering more about the micro mobility, the smart mobility, and cell towers, and the ordinance and the best practices for that, and same for every item. I don't want to take too much time out of it. And then now we are working on the tasks for the 2024-25, and in this task now, like as I mentioned, we can establish like 2 topic-based training workshops for the Sensible Tools Handbook. We're gonna map also and analyze access to parks and open space in EJ area. And now we are working currently in performing housing analysis and identify housing needs at the regional level and at the community level. I'm gonna explain in the next slides again how we're gonna create a community-based housing snapshot. Any questions before I move to the next one?
I have to ask a question.
No, that's okay.
Iman, first of all, this is amazing. You're doing a great job here. If you can go back a slide where you had the list right there, okay? SMART, okay? Are we in this plan going to take a look at solar farms?
Yeah.
Because we talk about land use, I didn't see it up here anywhere because that's become a really big topic, especially in the south part of the counties, right, where we have predominantly rural areas.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be important because you talked before about how suburbs are encroaching upon agricultural areas. Mm-hmm. Well, another encroachment is, of course, the solar farm, and I think that's going to be something that's
it's covered under sustainable.
Under sustainable?
Yeah, we're talking about the wind power and solar power.
Oh,
it's not listed here, maybe it's hidden, yeah.
I see.
But that's with energy.
Okay.
Yeah, with energy.
Okay.
But we covered that.
It covers it all. Okay.
Yeah. And
Thank you. I just wanted.
And we have tools.
Because I see those signs everywhere.
Yeah. And we have tools and how to start with, like the solar panels and everything. The book is actually comprehensive. It was done here in house, a team of us, like 4 of us, did all of this work. But I think it's a good idea to look at the sensible tools. All our plans, if you look at NERC and look at plans, any plan that you're looking for, you find it under plans in our website, so it's easy to find.
Thank you.
Okay.
A question on the comment, thank you. When you were talking about the congestion on the roads and traveling to cities for work, I know after the pandemic, a lot more companies embraced remote work. Did that impact anything? Because I feel many companies even stopped least take as much space in the city and really reduce their workforce that came to the office.
Yeah, it was, the traffic actually was reduced for a while, and now it's increasing again. And you can see that on the internet. I'm not the staff that's doing this work, but we have staff that working specifically on congestion management and traffic modeling. So they are the one working on that, and they cover this area actually within the study. So I'm not the right person to ask me about that, but I know that it's still like the congestion was less during the pandemic. And actually it changed our transportation modeling for the, because like we project like for every 5 years the congestion, and then now again lately from last year increased again. And you can see that in the 1894. I still saw congestion, especially with truck traffic.
Yeah, I just have so many friends and colleagues that work from home now. I'm like, I wonder why we're not seeing.
Yeah, it's basically, like as you see, the e-commerce now is growing still, and more warehouses and distribution centers is growing also within the area. And actually Indiana, it has the lowest tax, like for warehouses and distribution. So now we know that a good number, coming to Indiana versus Chicago, to our area, because it's attracting more because of the lower taxes. But we still, the traffic is increasing, truck traffic specifically is increasing. And NDOT is working now on a study, and Tom maybe can talk about that. They are working on 1894, trying to...
State of Indiana received what's called a mega grant to implement a project called the 1894 Flex Road. And what that involves is a number of different things, but it's primarily an ITS project, Intelligent Transportation Systems. And it will involve sort of like real-time monitoring of the traffic on 1894 from Illinois 394 to I-65. And then at certain times of day when there's when traffic volumes exceed a certain level and traffic speeds decrease to a particular level, they'll open up the center lane shoulder for additional traffic. So that's probably the biggest change to E94 that we're going to see. But there's also other aspects to it, including like ramp metering. So on certain ramps getting onto the expressway, there'll be, I don't know if you've probably seen it on like Roosevelt Road in Chicago or whatever, that basically prevents people from just free flow onto the expressway. So.
I live in Webster, so I'm really familiar with 1894. I'm right off the start of that. I feel like I have my own time study.
And you have a question?
Unfortunately, I have several questions. Number one, with the e-commerce, looking towards drone delivery, okay, taking some of that usage off the road, will NERC have a say in that, or be strictly upon the FAA, in regards to drones delivering to and from people's houses as opposed to using roads?
Yeah, and they have now the piping delivery. Yeah, they are not yet, they still, depending on trucks. So even the railroad, we are encouraging more to have like a railroad more than trucks. But I think now, some country are using the piping for delivery, and I know that it's so fast, it's going, so fast. And I don't know about the drones. I didn't see that myself.
The other question I had was in regards to, and it kind of blended into environmental, that you're looking at more trucks on the road for the e-commerce for deliveries to and from, and then would you would have to work with environment in regards to water runoff from I-94 into the surrounding water areas.
Yeah.
I mean, that's gonna have to work hand in hand, otherwise there's gonna be a problem there. I mean, as we increase our population and we have more trucks for specific needs people are wanting, that's something we're gonna have to keep a really close eye on, and like I said, with the environmental group. And lastly, solar farms. I'm very familiar with solar farms, because I live in Morgan Township, which is where the solar farm was trying to be put. Okay, now you said you helped with one of the solar farms in the area. Is that one of them? The Morgan Township, Malden area?
We have good examples of solar farms, like within the Indiana area, the whole state. But Kathy Luther is the one working on that. So she's really, like involved on solar farms. So if you have any questions related to that, Kathy was handling the this energy.
Thing to put in as a factor is the human factor. Because even though they had all the scientific numbers and data, the human factor, we don't want it, and with any elected politician who puts it in there, makes it very interesting in regards to the outcome.
Your area, not my county.
In our area, definitely in our area, yeah, different areas, so this is why I say.
So we have a battery store, $500 million battery storage, and a $500 million solar plant going in South Lake County, and it's a 7-0 vote on the council. Plan commission passed it 7-0.
Unfortunately for this
So that we have NIMBYs.
And that's basically what happened out in our area, is that they just didn't want it, so.
Rural farmland, the grandkids get it third generation, they don't want to farm anymore, so something's gonna happen.
They're looking at seven.
Sad to say, it's common whether people like it or not, sorry.
I'm a farmer,
Yeah.
so I understand.
No, I'm a construction guy,
Housing guy, I understand.
I'm an economist, I don't know anything.
But on the other hand.
Moving right along. Okay.
Thank you,
Might
Andy, for your
add
feedback,
something. Sewers, sanitary sewers is a serious issue, I think, that we need to also include in our future, because as we grow with the new roads coming through, if and when they appear, we need to figure out where we're going and how we get there as well.
Good land use practice, like we have all of that.
And the internet.
Yeah.
That's an infrastructure issue for housing.
Absolutely.
So I'm just now, if I don't have any more questions, I'm sorry. Now moving, we adopted the 2050 plus in 2023, and we had a whole chapter on land use and housing. We hired a consultant to work with us, which provided, like a significant data specifically related to housing. Which was the first time, but now we are, like the federal requirement now with our funding as NPO is to look into housing. So that's maybe our first time to look more in depth into housing. So in this report, quickly, I'm not gonna explain much, but like we have like a 6 goals we try to meet here is how to develop infrastructure that promote walkability and biking and public transportation and more mixed-use development. Identify also regional strategies targeting shared economic and social resiliency, environmental protection, and workforce development and housing market. Identify the state and highway and other key arterial. So the transportation is also, like impacting land use, and land use is impacting transportation, and that's something we looked at also as economic development and environment. We also, the NICTI and the RDA already developed the transit-oriented development plans for all the South Shore stations and the West Lake corridors. They just finished that, and we try to examine that and also try to see how is our funding fit with their programs, and that was a main goal. We also consider the 15 minutes city, which envisioned the city with the different districts for living, working, commerce, health, education, entertainments, all within 15 minutes walking or biking. Lastly is identify the key places and corridors. And that's to have like a specific resources allocation for these corridors, and we try to make it like a more livable corridors, and we identify certain one within the plan. I'm not going through the whole land use and housing plan, but just a quick overview showing the existing patterns here of land use and housing. We grew only in the last, between 1980 and 2020, we only grew by 0.5%. So it's a very slow growth. So we keep losing people, and even if we got like more people, but because we're losing people, the percentage is not as high. If you look at the map on the left, showing all the housing units changing here, and we have a significant within the unincorporated area, and within like a Winfield, St. John, Cedar Lake, that's a very high significant change in this area in the last 10 years. So that's something to consider. Again, we talked about, like we wanted to limit growth, outside of the urban area or unincorporated area, and try to preserve agricultural land. So that was the existing trends in the last years. And also when we looked at the housing analysis and affordability, here in this one, is that right? Yeah. Okay. So this map here showing, we have a table with, detailed data, but I'm not showing that because it's too much information. But we looked at the income, like up to 25,000, and then from 25 to 50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100, 100 to 150, and then over 150, and that's what the census data show. They don't show, like some people doing like house as a household, even 200 or 300,000 or so. But they were comparing, they have like a housing median price for every income category. And what's shown here, either they own a house or rent a house. So the data showing here is, for example, the 25%. And look at that, this is the number of the household within this income category. So we have a shortage here. We don't have enough housing or renting for this income. We have plenty of the people doing between 50,000 and 75,000. We have plenty of housing. But what's happening when you have a shortage here, people go to this category which they cannot afford. So they spend a significant money from their income to get a house, either renter or buy a house. Even, the people that making up to 100,000 as a household, up to 150,000, they don't have enough housing within their category. And what they're gonna do eventually, yeah, we have a lot of housing available, like in this category, but these people either go here or go to a housing higher than their income. So that was the analysis. I have another slides here showing even much better. So in this category, we have plenty of housing, but we are having shortage for all of these income categories. So that's one of the examples, but we're doing that for each community. So we tried now to get a snapshot showing, like what every community needs. The next slides here, when we did the analysis, we noticed that like we're missing the middle housing. And the middle housing here, as showing on in the bottom here, any 2 units, like 3 units, 4 units, townhomes, like a medium density, if we have like even mixed use apartments, we don't have enough of these middle housing. We have 85% of the housing stock, it's a single family homes, detached, and about 3/4 of them is in large lot. And that's again, people go outside, they don't have enough large lots, so they go outside of the urbanized area, and that's something, a concern that we introduce in this one. And of course, the solution to establish like a new land use category is to focus more on the middle housing, and showing different examples here of the middle housing. Here, when we run the preferred scenario, we looked at the first one here in the top. This is the existing condition. We have like so many large lot single family homes, and we have limited small lots, still single family homes, but small lots, and this is like the 2 units, and then have the apartment building or condominiums. So we don't have that much. So if we are going with the same trends, by the 2050, we're gonna use 40 square mile, like of land. And that's, we don't wanna continue doing that. And here we run like a 4 scenario, different, they try to reduce, if we reduce the large lots and increase the multifamily. And then with the analysis, we have like a significant analysis showing that we came to the fourth, the preferred scenario was number 4. So first we had to meet the criteria, the growth rate of 0.55%. And to do that by the 2050, we need to move from 785,000 people to 900,000 people. So, and for that we need 50,000 new residential units in the next 30 years. And that's what we have to think about. How we gonna, provide 50,000, but still in a compact development, and we are requiring a higher density, of course, to meet that. And so we selected the 4th one, which if we really stick to this scenario, we're gonna use only 16 square miles of land by 2050. So the preferred scenario here is showing like the direction here for the housing market based on the available information that we need more mixed use or small lots, very high density, specifically in the urbanized area. Showing here an example of the village here in Burns Harbor. They have about 6 units per acres, which is great. They still single family homes, but it's a small lot. So we need to do more of this type of housing. Here, that was a recommended development here. So quickly here, the mature community or the industrial community is a traditional development, and we're gonna focus more in infill and reinvest in older urban area. And we have the blue is a suburban community, and this one will be still like we're looking at 4 to 5 units per acre as a density. And then we have the orange area here, and that's focusing, expanding urban surface area near the boundary of the community. And then we have a community edge, and we have conservation land, which is beyond this dotted line. We have a specific requirement, even we can still have residential, but like it will be very restrict, like it will be like 1 unit per 3 or 5 acres within this area. So that's our recommendations. Like the report has more details and more data about that. I'm not gonna present all of that today, but if you would like, we can do it in a future meetings. So from that, we're going to the future land development and housing snapshot. And in this one, I'm showing you example here. I pulled Cedar Lake. Cedar Lake has 95% of single family homes. They have very limited 2 units or 3 units or multifamily within their community. Showing here also, that's the distribution of housing permit in the last 20 years. So they're still focusing 95% in single family homes and large lots. So showing also here the same affordability, what they are lacking. So they still, the low income, they don't have enough housing, and the other also the higher income. So this is a 2 category, and people that making between 75 and 100,000 as a household, they still need more housing for this area. So the purpose of the snapshot is for each community we're gonna give them a sheet showing, what's our recommendation from the regional perspective, what kind of density, because Cedar Lake, for example, different than Gary and Hammond and Munster, they're gonna have, like, of course, a lower density than these communities. And we pulled here the recommendation. Grace here, our GIS staff, she's helping us with all of this mapping. If you need any GIS help, she's here. And we pulled, from our regional map what's recommended here, for example, for Cedar Lake. So we're gonna have like some writing here, some recommendation for the community and give them the sheet and get feedback with them. But that will be the purpose of the snapshot for each community. And that's conclude my presentation. So you got tired, I know. So many presentations today.
So Joe, question. So that plan was adopted by the whole Council of Governments, correct?
Yeah, the commission, our board.
So what was their opinion of, I guess it was voted on and it was approved, but was there any pushback, like the elected official from Cedar Lake saying, hey, that's what our community wants to be? So how do we, because that's a struggle that we have as realtors, how do we, having been an elected official at one time, how do you convince the NIMBYs that we don't want that, we want what we already have?
It's just to make it more clear. I did this analysis after the adoption. So this is now we're doing more work and more analysis.
Okay.
So specifically for Cedar Lake, but when we presented the plan, we presented from the regional perspective and showing them the whole map and our goals. But now I'm doing that community by community. I'm gonna communicate with them. I'm gonna put myself in their board meeting or whatever and present the data, and I will see, what's the reaction about that.
Because I think the study that we're doing with Tony and Micah over at IUN, our goal is to have similar kind of example data in that, and to be cover, if you will, for the elected officials that this is what we need from a regional perspective in order for us to be healthy long term. Mm-hmm. Because if we don't have the infrastructure, housing, internet, sewer, sanitary water, and all that, protect all the environment as well, our future generations are going to have something less than what we've ever enjoyed. And there's some people out there that are going to say, oh, I could care less about the future generations, but I think that the majority of us, I think all of us sitting in this room, care about the future generations. So we're still trying to struggle with how do we convince the NIMBYs that this is for their benefit. That's the underlying, and I'm not asking you to answer that question, but to try to figure that out.
I know it's a challenge, and again, we're trying, more. The only thing we can do is we do it with our funding. That's the only control that we have. Yeah. But otherwise, it's up to the local communities. But I hopefully, with the training workshop, because we're talking more about sustainability and climate change, and in the workshop, and specifically targeting elected officials, and we're working actually, by the way, with Purdue Extension in Lafayette. So they're gonna partner with us in the workshops, and they're already doing a training, like 101 planning, or so they're already working with them. But we try, because we have a different perspective, than what they do. We're focusing more on sustainability and healthy and equity, and so they need more training. Because they are the one making the decisions, about any future development.
And not only that, but people that are appointing to the plan commissions.
Bingo.
The plan commissions, the zoning boards, these are people that are totally oblivious in most cases to proper land use plan. And they're going in there and they're feeling like, hey, I got appointed to the plan commission, I'm a honcho now. And then they go in there and the only thing they ever knew was what's always been. So, and I remember, this must be maybe 8, 10, 12 years ago, NERC was doing some workshops here for like plan commission members.
Yeah, we did it before. Yeah.
But if you don't come, you won't learn. So you gotta have the right people, and that's the hard part. People like you, people on the plan commission.
No, that's the commissioner.
People like everyone that's here. I want to again reinforce thanking you.
Since my name wasn't vote, yeah, we are doing this housing study, and it's very interesting because we're focusing a lot of attention on the supply side. We need more housing. That's what I heard. We need 50,000 more units by such and such year. What we really need to do, as part of this whole study, and I think part of our charter here too, is to try to address what's happening right now. For example, part of my study is that I've actually found 405 units in Lake County that are not occupied. So let's think about that. 23,000 plus housing units are not occupied, which means we don't have a supply problem, at least at the median level. We have a demand problem. We have an income problem. We have an occupation issue. Because I think you would talk about the people at the lower end of income, and they can't afford their rental house. They're living someplace, most likely.
Yeah.
And so either doubling up with other people, right, multiple families in the same home, or in their car, exactly, unfortunately. And so I think that's got to be at least something we need to address as a group. You know, how do we bring in businesses and how do we increase the levels of income so that the people can afford it? Let's face it, developers are going to want to they're going to put up the $400,000 house. They make more money that way, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm just saying, right?
Yeah.
And the people making $25,000, $30,000 a year can't do that. They can't occupy that. By the way, I found also rents, by the way, are very similar to mortgage payments. The statistical significance is very low between the two. And so you can either rent, you can buy, but it's a matter of having the monthly income, which about 28 to 30% of your take-home pay has to go towards the housing costs per month. That's just the way it is. And I'm looking at the data. I've got lots of data here. Poor Jennifer's watching my data here. It just doesn't mesh. It doesn't connect. And that's something we need to do. We need to make that connection. I think that's something that's coming out of our study. That I don't know. You know, that for those, you have to kind of put your eyeballs on it and see it.
I'm sorry that Randy left, but I also think just beefing up rehab programs to make housing that used to be livable now livable, and increasing the workforce development efforts to encourage the creation of a base of subcontractors that can do this. I had an interesting conversation with a minister in South Bend that does housing rehab, and the dilemma he faces, and I've heard this from others, is that once he trains people to serve as his subcontractors, the minute they get enough experience under their belt, they're moving on to more lucrative positions with general contractors. But to me, that would be a win-win. You help train and educate a whole new generation and crop of subcontractors. There's demand for their services for rehabbing vacant or deficient housing. That deficient housing gets rehabbed, becomes no longer an eyesore in the neighborhood, attracts a family that can afford to live there. I mean, the whole cycle is a win as far as I'm concerned. And one of the things I've been trying to explore, I haven't had a lot of success, but I remember hearing a presentation, I think it was out of New Jersey, that they were trying to build their base of minority subcontractors so that those same minority subcontractors would be well positioned to compete for certain federal or state construction projects. And I think we have that opportunity here as well. I think there are many people that could possess the chance to be trained in those fields. And if we can provide, at least in New Jersey, they had a small revolving loan program that helped capitalize those startup contractors, whether it was for equipment or a truck or adding somebody to their payroll. So those are things I'm trying to explore, because I really like that kind of circle idea, because everything it touches turns out better. As far as I'm concerned.
I agree, then, right? I think that's a great idea, and the key is a funnel of funding. So that's
why I may interject. I know contractors who come to me asking me if they know how to find employees to actually work for them, and these are contractors that they have jobs and they need them done. So it's a networking thing, I think, that we need to improve. Joe?
This will be an interesting, Henry, kind of in your same vein here. This will be an interesting study, if you will. the obstacles to being able to do what you suggest. The city of Gary just passed, or just eliminated, depending on how you look at it, they just eliminated the requirement that a general contractor must be licensed by taking a test in the city of Gary. They're recognizing the licenses of other cities and towns as being enough criteria to be able to do work in the city of Gary. That's been a major obstacle for people doing work in the city. I've talked to contractors saying, I'm not going there because I don't want to have to take their test. I don't get enough work out of Gary to go through that whole process and the expense, where now they've eliminated that obstacle. Portage did the same thing. Just recently, I think this within this last month, Portage was requiring a general contractor to be hired by a business owner if the business owner wanted to paint his own walls inside. How stupid is this? You know, so Portage just eliminated that requirement. So it'll be interesting to see how some of these roadblocks fall in order for business to become more, for communities to become more welcoming, because they haven't been over time.
And we don't have, it's in the Sensible Tools Handbook. We're talking also about, you know, the type of programs and incentives that help with the affordability of housing. As a state, we don't have enough incentives or programs to help with, you know, like with that. And that's something, you know, on the state level. I don't know about the local level if they have a specific incentives or programs, but I know that we did some analysis, and we are, in comparison to other states, really we don't have enough programs to help with that.
Just a couple of observations. One, the complexity of overlap. I mean, you have the plans and all the details that you've provided here is a tremendous amount of effort and data and work, and it's all very much appreciated. Some of the overlays are like, you know, just talk about increasing density and overlaying what the public is wanting. The public is wanting more space to get away from people, especially post-COVID. And that, what the market is wanting is running contrary to what we know is good for our planning. So you have that rub, and how do you address that? The government aspect is how do you incentivize to try to, carrot and stick type of thing, to get people to go there. In improving on density, working within already established industrial and urban areas to instead of sprawling out into agricultural land. In my job when I've traveled, whether it was nationwide or worldwide, communities, one comes to mind in Germany where they did that. They wanted to protect the farmlands around. So they coordinated with government so that if someone wanted to develop in an agricultural area, the taxes and fees and everything, you'd have to pay through the nose to do it. But on the other side, they made tremendous incentives to go into an urban area, redevelop, and work upward, so that it's to their financial benefit to do that. But it took government and the planners and had to all work together in unison to make that happen. It's doable, but a lot of coordination across all sectors. The other side is like with developers, different ones I've spoken with, they sit down in meetings like this and we show them where we need that, the categories of housing that you were wanting, but they look at the cost of labor, cost of wood, cost of all the materials, and they're like, I can't make any money building. So without government stepping in to provide incentives or even subsidies, we subsidize farming, maybe we need to subsidize building somehow, or through tax incentives or something, so that it's financially. Because I think a lot of developers would love to be able to apply their craft to help meet these goals, but they're not going to do it if they can't make any money. Or if they're going to make just a little, and over here they can make a whole lot more.
Yeah.
Which one's contrary to the plan? So it has to be that coordination, and that's where the rub is, and that's where our challenge is.
No such thing as low-cost housing. No, there just isn't. So how do we overcome that? It has to be subsidized in some way. You need to subsidize the workforce. You need to develop the workforce somehow. Partnering with educational institutions, partnering with cities, partnering with workforce development organizations. Because I think that is the roadblock. is the workers, right? You have to pay workers, and some of them don't want to work. So yeah, absolutely. And this is the policy issue, right? Isn't our job kind of to consult with the policymakers and say, this is what we have found, and these are our recommendations?
As far as the only other thing, point I have, just an overarching, looking at things from kind of the 30,000 foot view, kind of a nationwide perspective, we're in an extremely unique situation where if you're a major corporation and you have products and things you need to distribute around the world, there are very few places in the country that have what we have, where in a very compact area, literally within a few dozen miles, you could have the ability to send something via aircraft at the Gary Airport, via water to anywhere in the world, or any other port, by interstate anywhere in the U.S. and Canada through I-65, 94, 80, as well as rail. Our town of Porter, through 3 major rail lines, intersect right in downtown. So within 100 yards, 3 major lines. So anything coming rail from Maine to Florida, heading to Chicago or even to the upper Midwest, it has to come through here. So I would think if we could capitalize on that and make it not only for individual companies, but make it a concerted effort, an actual plan for a major complex where a company could come in, take millions of square feet and be able to, with rail spurs and everything else, be able to send anything by water, air, road, all one centralized area, and those would all be great paying
We have
jobs.
a prime central location. And we showed that in the e-commerce study, like the network that we have, it's a great network. Like to locate businesses and warehousing and industry, and so and we have the Port of Indiana, we have the airports, and it's a great location. And it's taxes, as I mentioned, cheaper than Chicago. So,
Yep, and the infrastructure's already there. You already have the population to help support it for workers. You got, there's all kinds of advantages. We just get that all organized into one concerted effort, that would be a home run.
Yeah, that's great ideas, great discussion, and thank you all for that. Yeah. Any other question or? Yeah, go ahead.
Just a comment. I'm going to advocate for my clients. When I meet with a lot of startups, clients coming from Illinois that want to start business in Indiana, our own users, and the shortage I see is co-working space and brick and mortar locations. I try to help them sometimes by going to different areas just to see where they could possibly be a good fit. But I do feel moving forward in the future, we're going to see a continued trend of growth in individuals that need that. So I'm a big fan of mixed use. They can work some consideration to that.
So the co-working is growing, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great to hear that.
Yeah, we have there's a location in Hammond, there's one in Crown Point, that I struggle to find more outside of that space.
So I do want to add a comment, as far as the homeowners, when you said that it's 30% required of it cannot exceed 30%. So when we building the affordable housing, what are we doing to help the lower income population want to be able to purchase these homes? Because 30%, lowering those credit cards to be under 30%, and also making sure that they pay their bills on time and having an income for 2 years. So you have to kind of prepare homeowners to be able to become a homeowner, how to manage their home after they get into these homes, as well as, what type of loan programs for people that have challenged credit issues, and how do we prepare them while we get those homes built? So that's,
that's important, yeah.
It's all part of the demand side. That's exactly what I was talking about. We have to make it. We have the supply. We need more supply, okay, but we also have a demand, but the demand is not manifesting itself because of income and credit issues. And and part of that's education, right? So part of that is education. We're now, thankfully, we're starting to talk about personal finance in middle schools, because that's where it begins.
Yes.
You can't wait until they're 35 years old and say, gee, why is my credit score 550? What does that mean? Because I see that all the time too. And so I teach personal finance. That's why I see that. And so to your point, absolutely, we need education. We need to work with banks. Because let's face it, how do banks make money? They make money by making loans, right? So we can make the bankers be able to make more loans because the customer is is a better customer than they otherwise would be, and that's a win-win every way. I agree.
I'll just throw this out there. I have not investigated this thoroughly, but the Ports of Cincinnati did an interesting thing not long ago where they put together, and I may have these figures slightly off, but it was a significant amount of money in order to bid on a portfolio of homes that were coming available that could have gone to kind of the housing investors that invest to flip, et cetera, but they were able to retain those, locally. And then a lot of work went into rehabbing them. A lot of work went into educating the people that were either renting them currently and wanted to buy them. But it was a very comprehensive program, and it's something that we may want to study because it seemed to touch, again, all those factors: homeowner education, preparing to be a homeowner, rehabbing existing housing stock, keeping existing housing stock within your control, and building up the neighborhoods in Cincinnati where these homes were located.
They have a similar program in Detroit as well.
In where?
In Detroit. They have similar
Detroit?
programs in Detroit.
And one of the struggles is tax policy.
Bingo.
Because now that properties have gone skyrocketing, an investor, many of the rental properties have been bought up by investment companies. And when they sell those properties, they got a huge tax bill, capital gains. And so now we've, as realtors, been advocating in Washington on looking at tax policy to relax some of those capital gain laws, if you will, to make and to give these investors an incentive to sell. Because without the investors selling, there are no houses to buy for the people that want to buy the rental that they're living in.
Excellent point.
It's a big vicious circle, all come back down to the financing.
Well, if I may interject at this point, we're
yeah,
running about quite a bit beyond our scheduled time, and I know people have.
Yeah, it won't be like that next time. That was like that.
But good conversation.
So many items. The last thing is the NOFA. We have it now. We released the NOFA. I think it was last week.
It's been out for a few weeks.
Yeah, a few weeks.
Deadline is next Friday.
Next Friday, yeah. So now we have people, community applying for transportation planning, TOD, environmental projects, and usually the land use committee used to review all the planning projects and the transit-oriented development. It was before also we had application for quality of place, but like we don't have it anymore. We merge it with other applications. So I think as we're gonna continue with the land use committee members, they're gonna review and score that, recommend it to the transportation committee. However, in January, I think I'm gonna present, the selected projects and talk about, either it's a planning or a transit-oriented development. I will present it next time. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dan. If there's anything that anybody wants to say in conclusion, speak your piece. We can adjourn the meeting and then stick around if you want to talk some more. But I know that it's getting to be noon hour, and people have other expectations for the day. So let me just say, today we can vote if you're for Porter County right outside the door. Very convenient, and remember, wherever you are, it's that time of the year, so please do cast your vote. I'm sure that you will. Our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, January 8th, 2025 at 10 o'clock a.m. Same time, same location. Thank you very much. God bless you all. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.